All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is a Common Rule podcast, and I am your humble narrator. My name is Danny. And let's see. Today is the well, I guess technically it's I'm recording this like at 1:30 in the morning. It's the 10th of September, the year of our Lord 2022. Tropical storm, I guess now. I guess it's been downgraded. Tropical Storm Gray is making his moves out here on the West Coast. And to be honest, out here in by the beach, we didn't get anything weird. It was maybe we got a little bit of rain, according to the telephone here. My mobile talking machine is telling me that there might be a little bit more showers tonight. But besides that, it's nothing from what I've been more or less witnessing on the news or anything else, what have you. It's been pretty mellow out here. So, hopefully you guys are doing all right with that. And, you guys aren't flooded out anywhere, at least down here in the West Coast. I don't know if it's going to make it out there to the desert, but it looks like the inland people did have a little bit of rain, and I don't know, maybe forecast is the mountains will get a lot of shit or whatever. But anyways, out here in the by the beach, we didn't get too much happening there. Let's see, a couple of things. Let's play some catch up here, and because it's been a minute, it has. And I just wanted to come on here and I don't have anything really specific today to talk about as far as the creative process and what have you. Nothing very profound, to say the least, but just kind of, it's been a minute, and just let you know that, I am still here, and I have a lot of plans to catch up, or a lot of conversations to get to. Hopefully we'll be talking to a few musicians. And this one also, hopefully the people from the Flim Flam, you guys are all right. It was funny because I was having a conversation with Grandpa Drew. For those of you that may or may not know, the Flim Flam Review, if you haven't heard the last podcast with Grandpa Drew, it's a collective of singer-songwriters. And they put on a show the first Saturday of the month at the Whistle Stop in South Park in San Diego. And it's really an amazing show. It's mostly original material written by the folk that get up and sing. You get the one or two cover songs up there, but they are very well performed and unique in most senses, as far as, it's a pleasure to listen to. And what happens normally is that the quote unquote after party takes place at Grandpa Drew's house, and everybody goes over there, hangs out, has some pizza, and continues to sing. And everybody gathers around the parlor, if you will, and everyone who wants to sing something goes up and sings or performs, or there's instruments lying everywhere, including a piano, upright piano. And these guys just go out, guys and gals, this group of people go out, and they just sing their hearts out and just perform the most obscure things. And what's funny and important here is that there's an issue with the, I hate to say, but it's an issue with the heat, guys. And the problem is this. At the Whistle Stop, I've never, ever had it to where they actually kept the doors closed and they had the AC cranking. And, what I usually do is park my car over usually by Grandpa Drew's house, and because he lives like 4 blocks away from the bar. And so I just park my car there, because parking over by the bar can be quite a bit of a bitch. There's a lot of people. It's good to see everybody out and about and what have you. But man, it was fucking hot and muggy as all hell. It's like I was down in the tropics in the jungle, right? So I walked these 4 blocks and I'm already sweaty as hell. and a little winded because I'm fat and I'm out of shape. But I'm winded, and I get to the bar, and it's the first time I ever see the bar. The doors are always open. This time it's closed, and they say keep the doors closed because they have the AC cranking. All right, and the AC was good. I mean, it wasn't like freezing cold, but I mean, what are you going to do? There's a bunch of people in there, right? So what happens is you get a bunch of people in a closed environment, right? I tried to go outside a couple of times and just to get some sort of break from the overall, because it was still kind of hot in there, but it wasn't stifling hot. But I went outside thinking I was going to get a break from the heat, and nope, it's even worse. It's just, oh my God, it's just so sticky everywhere and hot, right? So, it ends up being a bunch of people stuck in a place where there's really no circulation of the air other than the AC. And so when we went back to Grandpa Drew's pad and everybody shows up, again, Grandpa Drew's got the AC cranking, and that was a great AC. The thing is cranking cold everywhere. But he also, of course, what do you do when you turn on the AC? You close the doors. So a bunch of people were in there, and the door was closed. And this is one of the few times that I never went inside. I was having great conversations with the people out in the back, and I didn't go inside. The heat, I don't know, I just did not go inside and partake or listen to the jam that was going on in there. And this is like one of the first times that I've actually done that, to where I never went inside. I was just having these crazy conversations with these people in the backyard, and some things were being passed around, and I did end up partaking a little bit, and that might have a little something to do with me just like not wanting to move anywhere, and maybe time wasn't a factor at that point. And I just had a good time outside, and I never went inside. Well, my point is that because I think it was so enclosed everywhere, people actually got sick and caught the viddy vid, right? And it was sad to where so many people from that day ended up getting sick. It was like I think it's 3 for sure, maybe a couple more from the Flim Flam were caught it. I'm hoping they're well. I'm hoping they didn't get really sick. But I didn't catch anything. I more or less secluded myself for the last 4 days, thinking I was going to get some symptoms. And, I got sick maybe about, at this point, I got COVID a few months ago, and it didn't hit me that bad, to be honest with you. It did take me about a week for me to get back to negative. Maybe about a week, maybe about 10 days, something like that. But after about 4 or 5 days, I was back to about being 100%. So I wasn't, it didn't hit me that bad. But I don't think I got this new thing that's running around, the Optimus Prime or what have you. But anyway, this is all due, in weird part. I blame it's on global warming, man. You know what it is? If we are in September and it's 80, 85 degrees, at one point it might have gone up to as close to 90, and it's 60, 65, 69% humidity out there, and it is fierce. And even at night when we were outside, I don't think it got below 84, 83 with humidity out there. And it's crazy how this weather is just absolutely, it's fucking me up. I mean, at one point, I'm thinking about moving deeper down south into Mexico, right? And at one point I was thinking, you know what, I might look to moving down to the Yucatan, to all those ruins down there in Merida, Yucatan, and, maybe someplace outside of Tulum or Cancun or something like that. I'm looking at properties out there because everything is still out there, is still reasonable as far as, price to buy and what have you. And then, but that's all tropical weather. And then I got a taste within the last, almost 14 days now with this thing. I'm like, you know what? We're all right. We're okay. I don't need that. And so I'm probably just going to stick around and go down and maybe see what Ensenada's like for a little while. You know, I don't know. I'm kind of like really into looking into getting deeper into Mexico, and I might just wet my feet a little more, moving a little bit south here, and instead of the mainland, if you will. But we'll see. I don't know, man. I'm like I said, this weather had me rethink about living in the tropics all over again, because as bad as it is here, it's even hotter where I want to go, and stickier. So I'm like, oh God, I'm not sure I can deal with 90 to 100 days of that every year, as opposed to what amounts to, will probably end up being about 30 days of this shit. I don't know. But, well, yeah, that's, it's part of global warming, you know. I guarantee. I mean, I don't want to point any fingers at anybody. And I was taking the blame. You know, I drive a gas guzzler. I really do. And I have a weird conspiracy theory, or a weird theory that I came up with, but that's for another podcast on another show. as far as that goes. But anyway, let's take a look here. There's a couple of things that have come up since, and I think the main issue here is that I have started to, and although it doesn't feel like it, because it's not like I'm going out and making portraits on a one-on-one basis. I guess what I do when I take a photograph of someone on stage, maybe you can consider it a portrait as far as because it's a picture of a person. But in my sense, I think a portrait is really more of a synergy of a one-on-one thing, to where like me and another person are like, hey, let's make some photographs. Let me make some photographs of you. And somehow, I think on a real level is when there's a connection to where I grasp that person's essence in a fraction of a time at that particular moment in time. And those are special. Those are something else that, as far as music photography goes, where you're catching somebody doing something that they love, and I'm just there to document it. And document is something that I'm going to come back to in a moment, as far as what I'm moving towards. So, I have been making photographs, and it's mostly been of music and of flim flam, and a couple of things where I've mentioned before. I've gone up to Grandpa Drew up in Idlewild and more or less, and not make music videos, but more or less kind of like short films of some of his songs, and he was nice enough to more or less allow me to change up. I mentioned this already before, but he just, humored me as far as, maybe, can I hear this song on this tempo? And he's like, well, I've never done that before. And we just tried it out. I think it's awesome. Grandpa Drew has his doubts about it for sure, but he was nice enough to humor me and allow me to capture some moments in that. So, yeah, I have been, and it amounts to maybe once a month or so, to where I'm going out and shooting what I love. Shooting is music. And, it's been okay. And, by okay, I just mean that I could do more as far as photography goes, right? And so it's just a matter of getting out, right? And what's so funny is that we were having a conversation before I left on Sunday, before I left Grandpa Drew's house. We had a weird conversation about a lot of our practices when we're still out there. And what's funny is that when I still go out, I take my mask with me. And it's only on a few occasions, and this is really weird. It's really only on a few occasions and a few places where I essentially go, fuck it, and don't wear a mask and don't practice social distancing. And the flim flam is one of these things to where it's funny how on my way to the flim flam, I wanted to grab a burger, and usually the burger joint right next to the whistle stop, it's called The Station. Great burgers. I highly recommend it. And get the tater tots, not the French fries. And they have a bunch of cerveza that they serve there. And it's a really cool place, really mellow. And I must say, in this day and age, still very reasonable price to get a burger and a beer in there, by the way. Anyway, the reason I was starving, and I was thinking about, there's a taco truck, a birria truck right around the corner from the Whistle Stop in front of the liquor store out there. And the birria's okay. And I was thinking about getting a quesadilla there because they're huge and they're very, very delicious. But, you know, if I had the choice between the two, I really wanted a burger. And the reason I went to the station is because there was hardly anyone in there. And I went, you know, I can sit at the bar and have a couple empty seats next to me on either side, and I'm cool. That's why I went in there. And yet, you know, I'm thinking to myself, all right, the social distancing, but as soon as I get into the Whistle Stop, I say, fuck it. And I'm drinking next to each other, hugging people, just having a good time in a more or less crowded spot. And, you know, it will come back to bite me somehow. And unfortunately, the people that I hang out with must have the same sort of mentality because they ended up catching the same thing. And we've been doing this since about, the Flim Flam's been around for years and years. I've been getting back into the Flim Flam since April or May, to where I've been consistently going once a month. I think I missed last month, but I've been more or less trying to be as consistent as possible. You know, and what my point is, the fucking, at the end of the day, you misstep or you fucking play with fire, you're going to get burnt. And, you know, and unfortunately, a lot of people are really just, I think at my point, kind of fed up with it, right? And we've talked about kind of like the mental, let's just say how prepared we were mentally to be secluded, if you will, out in the West Wing. But it's not everyone was equipped to do that. And I think by now we are at the point where I think a lot of us are fed up with it and going, you know what, fuck it. If we catch it, we catch it, this, that, and the other, yada, yada, yada. To the point, like, there was, conversations with certain people that are highly educated on the subject. And what I mean by highly educated, I mean, they're in the field to where they're like, you know what, I think we've done all we can do. And they're on the basic verge of saying, fuck it. And, there was somebody from San Francisco that came down, and she was saying that this is the first time that she hadn't worn a mask in public, and she felt liberated. I've heard that. I heard it from a third party to where she just, some of us equate San Diego out to the Wild West. I think San Diego's still rowdy. Where I live around here down south, it is still very common to see people with face masks running around everywhere. I think it's something that, at least where I live, it's going to be part of the lifestyle down here. Anyway, my whole point is that you guys take care of each other as much as you can. Don't be a complete dick and asshole like me. Still try to practice as best you can. And let's not just fucking say fuck it just yet. And I will try to do better out there. Just so that we can get out more, and I realize that a lot of people aren't on board with it, especially this late in the game, it seems like, but I don't know, man. You want to say I understand the let's just say the resistance to wearing a mask now, but I think we still have to do it. So, speaking on that, one of the reasons I moved to where I wanted to move down here is because of the opportunities there are to visit places I've never been before, go out to more or less kind of like obscure things. And the first couple of years that I've lived here, it's been very difficult, and I've been very sheltered, to say the least. I've sheltered myself, to say the least. Where I just hardly I don't even go out for groceries, man. I have everything delivered. I found this new app on my phone that delivers Carl's Jr. to my place, and I fucking pigged out the other day, and it was so delicious. Carl's Jr. is, hey man, I love Carl's Jr. But yeah, it's better than McDonald's. I like Burger King too, but it's funny how down here where I'm at, Carl's Jr. is almost considered gourmet to the point where it's considered the higher end of the fast food down here. Don't get me wrong, it tastes like Carl's Jr. in the United States, where in my favorite fast food joint burger will always be In-N-Out. But down here, we don't have In-N-Out. But it tastes exactly like the United States Carl's Jr. It's delicious, especially when I think what happens is since they consider themselves the upper echelon of fast food, they take a lot more care in the quality that goes out with their food. I don't know if that makes any sense, but all I hear are great things to where there's like YouTube. At one point I wanted to find out, and that's the other thing too here, along with tacos, what's really good down here is not just tacos. Obviously, the tacos are the best in the world down here, and that's been documented over and over again. It's no it's no fake news. It's really documented over and over again that the Tijuana area has the best tacos in the world. I sip on my coffee. By the way, guys, I'll get into this right now too because this coffee. I've talked about the French press in my coffee. I highly suggest you guys get cinnamon sticks, not ground cinnamon. Get the actual cinnamon sticks that they have at the store, and break half of that stick up. Break it up really, really nice. Throw it down in the French press, and then on top of that, your coffee grounds, and then your water. We'll let it sit. You guys are gonna thank me. Anyway. The food down here is absolutely delicious, and aside from tacos, Chinese food is very good down here. Because it is. I don't know what it. Well, I do know what it is. Especially in Mexicali, but in Mexicali, there's a big Chinese Mexican community, and there is also a Chinese community in TJ. I think at one point the consulate was in TJ as well for China. Anyway. The Chinese food is very good down here, and obviously, if you guys don't know, there's the hot dogs with the bacon wrapped hot dogs. Those are also great. The corn on the cob, remember Nacho Libre, where he has his corn. That's down here. That's delicious. But the hamburgers down here are delicious. From the ones that you get at the stand to the one you go to a regular brick and mortar place, they're all delicious, and to the point where I'm thinking of doing a series about going to all the hamburger joints down here in Rosarito, and doing some sort of YouTube not review on them, because I wouldn't put up the ones that I don't like. I would just talk about the good ones that I do like. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But when you watch some of these channels and try to rate what's the best burger joint in Tijuana and what's the best burger joint in Rosarito or have you, and they do like top 5 or top 10 or whatever, up there, Carl's Jr., it's always mentioned for some fucking reason. And it's a good burger, but, Mexicans love their Carl's Jr. What can I tell you? It's a good burger. The one I have is fresh and hot and tasty. Anyway, so I've been eating good, and today I made these amazing. I don't know what we call them. I stuffed bell peppers, but more in the style of jalapeno poppers, sort of / enchilada sort of thing. And oh my god, they were delicious. I don't know what I invented, but they're stuffed bell peppers, a la Danny De La Cruz. That's all I could tell you. And man, I had a great time creating that dish, if you will. Anyway, And of course, tortas are also on the list down here. So the point is, like, I want to get out and start doing more, visiting more places, not just in this town. But one of the reasons I moved down here was to go to cool places like down past Ensenada. I don't know if you guys ever heard of the Bufadora. It's a blowhole that's down there. There's maybe only 2 or 3 in the world. One of them happens to be over here. And there's a couple other cool little beaches that I wanted to hit as well. And, it's a matter of getting out. And for the past couple of years, I haven't been doing any of that until, my birthday came up. And I was like, you know what? I need to go out and do something. And basically all I needed was my friend. And I was like, hey, man, if I booked this little hotel down by the beach, down ride, would you want to go hang out? And he's all, fuck it, let's go. So me and my buddy went on a road trip. And there's this hotel down there called the Pirates Cave, La Cueva del Pirata. And it's past Ensenada, maybe a couple hours, hour and a half or so, something like that. And it's this it's a nice hotel, first of all. It's nice, but it's basic, very, very basic. So if you want to go in and disconnect, this is the perfect place for you to go. If you want to write your next short story, if you want to work on something, if you take your computer down there and want to edit something and you need time away from your whatever it is that you're doing, if you need to write your next novel or whatever, this is a great place to spend the weekend. From what we could gather, it seems like it's a big mainstay for off-roaders. The hotel is more or less right on the beach. And it's cool. Like I said, it's very basic amenities. They do have a restaurant there that has weird hours. They're not open for breakfast. They're open from like 1 in the afternoon to like 10 at night. And but they have a full bar that with good liquor in it, which we took advantage of, and decent food. It's it's not Michelin star food, but it's actually pretty decent. And again, the rooms are clean, and the ocean is right there. And it was just a gorgeous day that we went. Originally, what I did was and it's very cheap. Very reasonable. It's $29 a night, and this was a weekend night. So I don't know if summertime is not their high season, but this was 3 weeks ago, and so I was expecting higher limits to the point where I was actually skeptical of the price of the what I was thinking was a motel, but it's a really nice hotel type environment, and I highly recommend it. It's pretty easy to get to. So, as long as you don't stop by the Bufadora. The Bufadora, I hadn't been there in maybe, I don't know. I'm saying probably 30 years. And it is a whole big tourist trap, which is actually a good tourist trap to experience, in my opinion. Everyone should be subjected to this kind of tourist trapism, if you will. And but to get to the Bufadora is a little bit of a pain in the ass. It's so weird to where my friend had been there a couple of times. He's all, this is the way to go. And I'm like, I don't believe you. And he's all, dude, I swear to you. And he's like, okay. And it's really like dirt roads to get to a certain spot to then turn onto another highway to get to the Bufadora. It's weird, but I highly recommend that you do it. You don't need a 4-wheel drive vehicle to get there. You can make it on a normal car. It's just going to be a bumpy ride for maybe a good 20 minutes, and then you're back on to the to a regular highway. Anyway, we stopped at the Bufadora for a while, and then ended up going down to Kalamu, I believe is the name of the little town where this little hotel is at. And I originally had got the hotel for the weekend, but we ended up not wanting to spend the extra night down there because we, let's just say we had other adventures planned for ourselves throughout the weekend, if you will. So we went to a place that I wanted to go the next day. So the next day we got up it's early for me. My buddy wakes up at the fucking crack of dawn on a regular basis, but I woke up at 2 today, so you know what, whatever. Oh man, my coffee's delicious. Hopefully I'll edit out that I just sneezed. Somebody must be talking about me. A little anime joke. Anyway, so my friend is used to getting up super early. I didn't mind it, to be honest with you, because I was up and ready to go myself. I think I was excited because of where we were going before. So the whole time I'm kind of taking a little video dash recorder on my car, which I'm getting myself used to where like I like putting a little camera on my dashboard and just recording the scenery as I drive by. And we went to this place called La Lobera, and it's about another hour and a half, I'd say, from where from that hotel. And when we got there, I didn't realize how off-road that is. Now, to get to La Lobera, in case you want to know, what it is this beach where the sea lions go and hang out. And it's like this hole in the ground that goes right into the beach. It's amazing. I loved it. I've never seen anything like it. But one, it's the only thing there is to do there. It's like you go, you see it and go, oh my God, there it is. And you walk around it. Maybe go and see, they got awesome tide pools, which are very difficult to get down to. You got to be some sort of spelunker to get down in there. And then you go on the other side of the beach if you want to, or the other side and look at the cliffs. But I don't know if you guys ever been to that big old meteorite thing out there outside of Winslow, Arizona, where the meteorite hit, and there's a big hole, and it's when you get there, it's like, wow, this is wonderful. But really, after like 10 minutes, you're like, well, there it is. We saw it. And that's more or less what it is. The beauty of doing this by the beach is like you can sit there and it's serene for a minute, as long as there's cool people not yelling and screaming. But it's nice. The ocean, it was hot though, but you know, with the ocean coming in, it was beautiful. The sea breeze coming in and hit you. It's a beautiful place. It's worth the drive, in my opinion. But I'm crazy, and I don't know how much of what you guys like to do outside. And so, I mean, I recommend it. But what we ended up doing actually was, so it's another dirt road, and if you just take the dirt road straight to the hole in the ground, I call it, to the main beach, it's a good 15 minutes to get to from off the highway, which is a really fast turn off. I mean, you gotta be really waiting for it and looking out for it. So it's about 15 minutes from the highway to the hole in the ground, I guess. But what we did was we took a wrong turn. And what we did, first of all, is we trusted this one guy who thought he knew what he was doing, and he didn't. So we ended up going down another road. And what I loved about this road, though, was that it was an off-road road. The guy that told us this was the way, he just had a little like Prius type of car and was going off-roading in it. And we're like, man, the ball's on this guy, right? And we finally got to a point where it was, you really needed four-wheel drive, or at least a car with clearance to get up and over a certain thing. And he didn't make it, and he had to turn back. And I bet that's when he realized he went the wrong way. But because my rig could take it, we decided to keep going. And it was the first time I ever put the machine in 4-low, and we went at it, and we went off-roading. Now, to be honest, I was excited. It's the most off-roading drive I've ever done in my life. Did I need to put it in 4-low? I don't know. I don't even know if I really needed to put it in 4-wheel drive, to be quite honest. Maybe there's a couple parts that were kind of scary. 4-wheel drive definitely helped. 4-low wasn't absolutely necessary, but I'm like, you know what? I've never used my car in 4-low before, so I'm going to switch it on there and see what this baby's all about. And she cleared everything really nice. I was so happy. And at the end of the road, we were rewarded with this amazing private beach that you can basically only get to on a 4-wheel drive vehicle or on a vehicle that has a higher clearance than normal. And it was awesome. It really was. It's amazing. You get there, and I did spend a little bit more time there than my 5-10 minutes and going, oop, there it is. But it's obvious people go there off-road, and it's easiest if they have those side-by-sides. They could probably get there in half the time that I got there. Because, if you got those little, those off-roading carts that are basically meant for this type of road, you can get there super quick. You don't have to worry about too much. With my car, I can't go that fast because of a lot of things. My car isn't geared for that type of off-road going that fast. Anyway, I didn't even have the tires for it, but she made it. And it was just such an amazing view to go somewhere where normal cars can't go. And it was just so beautiful, and it's inspiring. And I was really like, man, this is what it's all about. This is the reason I came down here. This is the reason that I wanted to live down here where I'm at, is to see places like this that hardly anyone visits, and little jewels of nature that happen. And so obviously I'm planning my next trip. From there, it was like, you know what? Okay, we saw it. We basically ended up going there early in the morning. Well, early for me, but we ended up being there before noon, saw a bunch of things, and then we had lunch up in a little town somewhere. And this is where the story and adventures really gets to why I think we go out and why the connection with people is real, and why things like, getting sick and pandemics really affect society to a big point. So my friend and I are hungry, and we're on the way up, and we're like, hey man, we, first cool little stand we see, we want to go and eat. And my friend and I have this thing where we don't want to eat first of all, we don't want to eat a chain restaurant down here. We're not going to go to like an Applebee's or something like that, McDonald's or whatever. We're exploring. We want to, meet people and go and eat, fucking great food somewhere that is off the path, and not, we'd rather eat at like a little shop, a little shack, a little stand than at a fancy restaurant, because this is how you, I guess in our opinion, how you explore, what have you, right? You do need to be careful out there because, Montezuma's Revenge is a real deal. So, hey, eat at your own risk, but we were all right with having to stop and take care of ourselves on the way and on the wild. So, there you go. Luckily, that didn't happen, and we were able to make it to where we can handle our business in the proper location. Anyway, we ended up stopping at this torta stand down a little ways in a little town called San Quintin. And, we got there, and they only serve two kind, al pastor or carne asada. And first of all, the food was delicious. We got these tortas. The al pastor is slightly different. That's what my buddy had. I had the carne asada, which also is delicious. But they have these pickles, and soaked in they're actually cucumbers still. They're not pickles. They're cucumbers soaked in habanero and some other little vinegar of some kind. Oh my God, they were so delicious and so fucking hot. I mean, like, I ate them, but I was scared that they were probably going to catch up to me on the road. So I didn't eat a whole lot of them, but it was delicious. So the lady, it's one of these little places where, like, hey man, do you have any beer? And they're like, no, wait, hold on, I got a buddy. And she's all, hey, can you come here for a second? He's like, yeah, you mind getting these guys some beer? And he's on, nope, not a problem. So they didn't sell beer, but the guy ended up going to the store and grabbing us some beer, and so we can have with our tortas. And that was pretty amazing. But she saw me, and the lady started to open up and tell us a story. And it's a little bit of a downer, but she told it to me, so I'm going to tell it to you. And I'm only telling it to you as far as because of the connections that we make when we go out to do stuff, right? And to tell you this, it's a very sad story, and it's kind of tragic. So I don't know if you're not in the mood to hear it, just giving you a heads up. But it's a sad story. So we're there and we're eating, and the lady kind of opens up, and we just start talking about how she actually asked us where we were coming from, and we're like, hey, we just went down to La Lubera. It was a great time. Oh my God, she's you should go here. That was also pretty good. There's also the volcanoes there off of that way out to the side. I'm like, and I'm taking notes about this. And somewhere along the line, she's she starts like opening up to about she starts telling us about this accident that she had and just a few days ago. Something where she got hit head on by a driver going the opposite way, and this was at night, and it was more or less possibly a drunk driver. He had to have been drunk because he swerved and he hit me head on. So what happened is like she got hit head on. It spun her around to the opposite side of traffic, and where she had to get out of the car because there was another car coming, and she wasn't sure that it was still going to be, if the car was going to see her. So she tried her hardest to get out of the car, and it was hard because the door was smushed in. But she was finally able to somehow kick the door open and roll off the side of the road and avoid getting hit again. The other car barely missed her car, and he barely missed her rolling off to the side of the highway. She's all, it could have been really bad. She just got, she didn't break any bones, but she's very bruised up, heavily bruised up, and she shows her hands, right? And her hands are all colored red because I think one of two reasons we decided her hands are colored red, probably because she mixes the al pastor by hand. And I don't know if you guys know, when you make al pastor, there's just call it a red paste that is in the mix. And so she's probably done it so much that her hands are stained that way. And she also owns a candy store next door. So if she makes her own candy with the chamoy and all those other Mexican ingredients and uses that up by hand, I think that stains her hands as well. But she's got these red hands, the palm of her hands are bright red. And so she's telling us a story, and she's speaking with her hands. And I said, you know what? That's just an incredible story. There is someone looking out for you out there. And she said, yeah, there sure is. It's my son. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, man. I was like, I'm glad to hear it. And then she just kind of needed to unload a little bit. And I think you guys know, maybe some of you guys experienced this, where it seems like people open up to strangers a lot easier than they do people they know. And I know that it's been my experience. I don't know what it is, but people seem to tell me a lot of things. And it's just weird that way. But she started telling me the story about, my son. I'm like, oh my God, she's like, yeah, he just passed away about 2 months ago. Actually, about a month and a half ago. It was something like 6 weeks. I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry. She was, yeah, he was just like you. And he was tall. And he was tall just like you are. I'm like, okay. And she starts telling me the story. It's a tragic story where it's, it was unrequited love. He was in love with a young girl. The guy died when he was 16. He ended up committing suicide. He spilled his guts to the girl and bought her a gift. And, as you hear the lady tell you the story, she led him on. But one day when he just totally confessed his love to her, she laughed at him, and it wasn't, she didn't have any feelings for him, and to the point where he still didn't believe it until she was finally posting pictures of her and saying, hey, this is my new boyfriend, and she was going out with some other guy from school, what have you. And the guy ended up finding his dad's gun, and gave up the ghost. And the part of the story was that when they found him, he had already been dead for about 20 minutes. But when they kept knocking on the door, his sister ended up having to break in through a back window to get to him. And she swears that, he was still talking. And when they were banging on the door to try to get in and calling out his name, they can hear him saying, hold on, I'm coming. But by that time, he was already dead. And so she showed me the picture of, him and her, and he was taller than her. The thing I think that really gave it away is that when she saw me coming, I have these black frame glasses, and I came up, and she must have just immediately hit, because when I looked at the picture, he was wearing more or less the exact same glasses I was, and he was taller than her, and it was just like, I can see where she just immediately kind of like, I could have reminded her of her son. I'm not saying I'm young, but maybe like an older version of what he would have become at some point. And it was really sad. And, it's this weird sort of story, sad, tragic story that you come across when you go out and connect with people. And it's, as far as trying to not to sound too, spiritual or too, aloof about what it is, it almost seems like, you go out for a reason. And I think from what that point was, when that lady was going through a bunch of shit in her life, it made the trip that much worthwhile for her, I think, for me to be there. And it could have been anyone maybe, but it just so happened to be me, to where she needed to unload a lot of shit. I'm no psychiatrist, psychologist, or what have you. I just listened. I didn't even have anything to say other than, I'm sorry, this is fucking tragic. And again, reiterating the fact that, someone was looking out for her during her car accident a few days ago. And, it just kind of made the whole going out worthwhile. That's my point, to where these connections happen when you get out of the fucking house, And it, in a weird sense, it didn't, I'm not trying to say that it made me happy, because obviously it's a tragic story. To find joy in that is, I don't know, a little dark, right? A little blue, a little macabre, if you will. But in a sense, there was a sense of accomplishment of why you go out, and the whole scheme, of life, and, how humanity somehow, we all need each other in a weird way, to where I'm glad I was there for her to just unload for a little bit, and, the idea is to go back in there in maybe a month or so, or in a few months, to check in on her and see how she's doing. I don't know. It just seems like now I'm invested in this lady's well-being and feelings, to where it's probably going to be a regular stop from here on out whenever I'm down south, to where it's going to be, we're going to go to Patty's Tortas out there in San Quintin on the south side of the road, San Quintin, if you will. If you go in there, ask how she is. Hopefully, it's just a little stand. It's got two. You can see it very easily from the highway, but it's just got 3 tables outside, and it's just a small stand next to the candy shop. So I don't know if you guys ever want to go by and say hi. That's where she's at. Anyway, again, we need to get out. We do, to a certain point. Now, how crazy are we about risking our health? I don't know, man. But at the same time, it really just kind of, it gave me more sense of purpose around here to where got to get out and got to create and got to have something, even this whole point of the trip was not just to enjoy everything, but I kind of wanted to scout locations for something. I don't know, make note of something that's picturesque, that's worth photographing, that's worth probably making a portrait of someone out there. And in case you haven't seen it, my buddy took a great portrait of me out on the beach. You can see it on my Instagram at The Common Rule. And, look at how good I look. It's fucking amazing photograph. And that's what I'm talking about, And, the story and that photograph alone was worth the trip. Anyway, to pivot here, to kind of, get out of that little sad story-ish, I wanted to talk about how, at least in the creative process, how I'm going to pivot into something else. Now, when I first started this whole photography thing, what's funny is that the reason I got into photography, and I've mentioned this before, but fuck it, I'm going to mention it again, was I bought a video camera, actually in the early 2000s, maybe even late 90s, somewhere around there, to where I wanted to document my friends and I taking these trips, and specifically is because we were always following Pearl Jam, and we were going on these trips, and every time Pearl Jam was in the vicinity, we, you guys heard like Grateful Dead heads and the people that follow Fish, they go to a bunch of different concerts all at the same time. Well, we don't got that big money, but whenever they were in the Southern California area and even Las Vegas, we went to as many shows as we possibly could. As adults now, I'm trying to do that, but I'm thinking that I'm at the end of that sort of era to where unless they're playing something or I get lucky with tickets, I don't know. It's just going to be hard to follow them in LA twice, San Diego, Nevada, and maybe San Francisco. It's going to be very hard for me to do all those. I mean, I can do San Diego or Phoenix, as it were, at that time, but, it's just going to be, I think I'm just going to go, hey, man, San Diego was a cool show. I got to get back to work sort of thing, and unfortunately. But anyway, as kids, we would follow these kids. I mean, this was, it was 20 years ago, man. No, it was 20 years ago. By the way, my birthday was just, it wasn't just, it was about a month and a half ago. And end of July, I'm officially 47. So, yeah, 27's kids, whatever. Anyway, we were out and about, and I actually started, my idea was to video and make video out of this, and I was on the verge of, I was going to learn video editing. That was going to be my thing. I was going to build a computer. My buddy helped me build a computer from the ground up, which is the first time I ever did that, specifically geared at that time for video editing. And it was cool. But I ended up taking my dad's camera with me, and I ended up making a few photographs that I thought at that time were epic. And there's one that still stands out. And that's when I decided, you know what, maybe I should concentrate a lot more on photography, which I did. And it got to the point where as I grew more and more obsessed with photography and using my camera instead of video, it got to the point where I didn't see the value in video anymore. And any sort of documentation, any sort of essay that I was going to portray, any sort of documentary I was going to do was going to be based mostly just on still photographies. I was that obsessed with that sort of way of telling a story. And specifically, as I got into photographing like music, I think one of the ideas that maybe makes my photography or made my photography stand out over others is that I really wanted to capture the show and the set in its entirety as a story instead of one or two sort of photographs from the show, if that makes any sense. I wanted to kind of show a series of photographs that helped experience or help people portray the experiences I felt at that time. And I thought that was a better way of telling a story. Well, it's not a better way of telling a story. It's just a way of telling a story. And as I get older and start to realize that the basic blinders that I had on, as far as photography being the end all be all of everything, is absolutely trash. It's philosophy. Again, photography is just a tool now, and it's just the way the camera is just a tool. I said this before. I have a bunch of different brands of cameras. They're just tools to me. I don't have one particular brand that I like over the next. Just each one has its purpose. And as I am really getting into the flim flam and how they are getting me more or less out of my funk, and I'm starting to really go back and take pictures of them with a different light as far as documenting, the skills that I've learned so far, specifically not just obviously photography, but the skills that I've learned along the way, especially the last couple of years here, and more so during the pandemic. And what's funny is, like, during the pandemic, there's these jokes of going around that we've been saying, if I only had the time to do this and I've only had the time to do that, I would do X, Y, and Z. And well, we did. And the joke is, a lot of us did jack shit during that time, right? Well, not me. I actually learned, or I'm learning, and I'm not saying I'm a recording engineer, but I stepped up my game to where I bought more equipment, and I'm learning how to record music better, or at least good enough to make a short film out of. So I'm watching these music documentaries that are coming up, and I'm looking at these audio. Alan Lomax is who my, let's just say my mentor is, if you will. The Lomax family in general. There's John Sr., John, and then Alan Lomax. They were what one would call musicologists. And to more or less oversimplify what it is that they do, is the reasons that you hear music, especially music that affected me, is like blues music from the 20s and 30s, and even Lightning Hopkins, is that, and I mentioned Lightning Hopkins, to me, he's one of the best blues guitarists that ever lived. But what everyone, during the time in the 60s, he recorded Robert Johnson and Leadbelly and a lot of other musicians, and not just blues, but what folk music is. And because of Robert Johnson, this rock, that basically helped fuel a lot of the rock and roll that ended up coming out during the 60s, especially in England, and a lot of people, to where music is what it is today, because Alan Lomax decided to record a bunch of nobodies, or a bunch of people that were just famous by word of mouth during a certain, well, let's just say, marginalized section of America at that time. And he went out there as a white dude and recorded music no matter where it was from. And because of that, it's made such a high impact in the world. And all he was doing was just trying to, document. That's all he was doing. I don't think he ever thought that it was going to be as big as it was today. I'm sure that he felt like he was doing his duty. But as a human, I guess, and maybe even as an American, although he did go to Europe and record a couple of things too, but his duty as an American, if you will, these people need to be heard because they are Americans too. And we're going to get into that in some other philosophy some other time. But he wasn't doing it for rich and fame. It's not, I'm sure he made a living out of it, but I don't think he got rich and famous from it. Anyway, that's more or less the template of where I've decided to start doing some things. And NPR has got a great series, and I talked about this before, called the Field Recordings. But my main pivot right now is that I've decided to actually go back, and I don't know if this sounds selfish or delusional at the very least, but I'm going to more or less take it upon myself to document these things. And I have to start with the flim flam, because at the moment it's what I know best and what I have probably the easiest access to, but it's also because there are a lot of great musicians there that I think deserve to be highlighted. There's just so much talent there. And, it's, again, part of getting out and doing something. So I am probably, and I keep mentioning to my friends this, and I think it's delusional, but I'm probably going to buy the last camera with my own money. I'm going to buy some sort of cinematic camera, something that'll give me a higher quality of video, and really set out to make a quality documentary. I have footage from these other things. I have maybe a very short documentary that's ready to get edited. When I went on with Transfer out on tour, I have about 24 hours of video that I think I can edit down to about 20 minutes. And it'd be a nice little short documentary. At least it'll be a nice short portrait of what it was to be on tour with them during that time. And I already have the outline done with it. And I've threatened to be doing this for the last 15 years, but you know what? It's one of the first things that I got to do, finish, in order to get comfortable with editing a real documentary the way that, you know, I want to do it. So again, I'm looking at all these documentaries and learning from them. There's the type of documentary that I want to do, just to bore you a little bit more, is something called real cinema. The French have a word for it, the true cinema, cinema vérité, some fucking shit like that, you know, where it's basically all you do is you just point the camera and let real life happen. Now, there's these documentaries that I just found out that are made in the 70s, and one of them was made in 65. But the reason I found them was because there is this sort of comedy group with Bill Hader at the head, and there's a couple other people you guys all probably know. And they made a series of documentaries called Documentary Now. And it's a series of documentaries that are most of them are based on real documentaries. And, you know, I've seen them, and they are, they're funny, and they're amazing in and of themselves. But I took it upon myself to watch the actual documentaries that they were based on. And first of all, the actual documentaries they based them on are epic. They are amazing. And they're all this sort of real cinema sort of type where you just point the camera and let life happen, as with very little intervention from the film crew. But once you watch the original documentaries, you really, really appreciate their mockumentary and how good how good comedians they are, but actually how good of and great, I would say, actors that they are in order to portray the people that they're mocking. And they're not making fun of them in a sense to where they decided to take what it is and make something funny off of it. I highly recommend you guys watch that. Anyway, I really appreciated those documentaries. Hey, I even watched a couple French documentaries, man. And you know what? Anyway, I went down that path. And so, again, I'm using this word pivoting. I don't think I'm changing directions but I think as far as documenting goes, I think owe it to the people that have patience enough for me to record them somehow, whether it's film or video or photography or audio, to do the best that I can and be able to somehow more accurately portray and make a portrait of them in this day and age, to where you know, there was a Townes Van Sant documentary that happened, and there was oh shoot, I can't remember this other documentary that Grandpa Drew recommended to me that I saw, and they're very well made, these documentaries, to where I'm like, there's no reason why I can't do that right now, with just maybe one more piece of equipment that I had. It's always one more piece of equipment, though, right? Always one more piece, and that's the other thing too, where a lot of us. Well, I think it depends on where we're at or what it is that we do, but we all suffer from gas, right? Me in both two ways, right? But gear acquisition syndrome, to where we think that the next piece of gear is what's going to really make us that much better. And you know what? I have my issues about that. And I've talked about before, where you need to start off with the gear you already have, right? But here's the thing. Yes, start off with the gear you already have until you mastered it. And once you've mastered that, or more or less got to know it to the point where, like, your creative output is only limited by the gear that you have, then you can start buying more stuff. And this is how you should acquire whatever gear that you have. as opposed to, you barely know how to take pictures with your cell phone and you want to go out and buy a $5,000 gear. You barely know how to play the little acoustic bullshit guitar that you have and you already want to go buy a $5,000 Les Paul. You're not going to be, Slash with your half stack and your Les Paul when you even can't play Mary Had a Little Lamb on your shitty little, box with strings on it, right? Which actually, Mary Had a Little Lamb ain't that easy, but you know what I'm talking about, Anyway, well, if you play it right. Anyway, that's my point. My point is that once you got good with what you have and you're only limited because of the gear that you have, then you should start buying more. Now, I'm not saying that I'm a super master photographer, but in order to present something that's higher quality, and I don't really have a problem shooting stuff with quote unquote low quality, but it gets to the point where technically wise, certain things need to happen in order, because of the situations I do see myself shooting in, I need better gear to do it in. Anyway, I don't want to bore you guys. The point is that I am thinking about buying a cinema camera in order to up my game, in order to start shooting not just these documentaries, but who knows, maybe I'll become the greatest porn cinematographer at all time. You don't know. You don't know what's going on, It could be the next Deep Throat, the biggest grossing movie of all time. Anyway. Or maybe that was, maybe it's taken over by El Mariachi now, but who knows? But my point is that acquiring gear, if you will, can be a good thing, because at the end of the day, once you get that little thing, you're inspired to go out and test it. You're inspired to go out and do something, and you work on it. And as long as you're properly obsessed, if you will, it's not a waste of money. And it's in this day and age we live where you can buy something and then just put it up on eBay anyway. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to buy this little, a little black magic thing that's happening, and start making some appropriate video portraits of people doing their thing. And in this case, we're going to start with music and see what happens. I'm excited about it. But, it's also just liberating to go out, be creative, and connect with people finally again, to be able to make stories and hear stories, and it's just a beautiful thing out there. And, a friend of mine, she just, put on her Instagram, that she's finally starting to clear out her garage because it's a mess, because she wants to start creating again. And she's really good at making jewelry. And I'm like, you know what? ABC, it doesn't stand for always be closing, like, coffees for closers sort of thing. If you guys haven't seen Glengarry Glen Ross, you guys got to watch that movie, or go to the play if you just so happen to have it when showing close to you. But the big Alec Baldwin speech in that, is you always be closing. And I'm like, no, you always be creating, try to, in some way, shape, or form, either be creating or make plans to create something. And, this whole time, yes, I've been taking notes. I've been wanting to make plans on how to create. And I just think that now is finally the time to start to execute it, and going out in public carefully, but start to really execute these plans that I've been making for the past couple of years. Anyway, that's enough today. Thank you guys so much for listening. Again, stay healthy, stay clean, and bring your umbrellas out there in case. But at the same time, man, try to stay cool. I don't know if hopefully the temp starts to go down, but man, it's hot and muggy as hell out there. So take care, stay dry as much as you can, and enjoy your youth. Take it easy.